Hey Ranger Nation, welcome back to another video, and today I'm doing a series of The Secrets Within Me, and I'm going to be reading the entire book over a set chapters. So this is chapter 1. Now, this is by Liana Ramirez, who plays Roxy from Beast Morphers, so I thought I'd read a book. I've had it since day release, so I haven't read it yet, so this is the first time that I'm reading on it. If you like this sort of content and you want to see more, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as the cheeky notification bell to be notified when more videos drop. Let's jump into this reading and let's begin. The Secrets Within Me, Chapter 1. Pick a card, any card, I instructed the 12-year-old, who bit his lip as he scanned the deck in my trembling hands. Stop being nervous, Mags, you've got this. There is no reason to be scared. He snatched one from the middle and showed it off to the small crowd that had been formed around me in the middle of the Purple Dove, the magic shop, where I was an employee and occasional performer. Remember what it is? I asked him. Yes. His eyes scanned the card over and over, making sure he knew it by heart. I giggled. All right, place it back anywhere in the deck. He carefully placed it towards the end and took a step back, ready to watch. I shuffled the cards as the crowd buzzed with anticipation. The cards on top of the deck. I whipped around to glare at Danny, a tall redhead junior who was in all of my classes. Danny's goals in life? Sabotaging my magic tricks and being an ass. Suddenly, he was one of my co-workers stroke fellow magicians, and his competitive impulse to always be the best drove him to try to make me look stupid in front of audiences. What's worse, I'm pretty sure he can sense my nerves at any given moment. No, it's not, I corrected him. I smiled, reassuring everyone that he had not ruined the show. You palmed the card and then did a false shuffle, resulting in the card being on the top of the deck. He hovered over my shoulder with a smug grin. No, it's not. My cheeks burned. Keep your cool, Maggie. He always does this. Don't let him get under your skin. I grinned at the little boy. He looked like he had just seen his parents kiss. Okay then, Margaret. Why not show the crowd the top card? He shuffled his own deck of cards. He did not just call me Margaret. That little prick knew I hate being called by my full name. He purposely spelled it Maggie on my own paychecks and loved to make fun of my unique spelling, Maggie. It's Maggie, I glared at him. You're stalling, Maggie, Danny smirked. And you're heckling, a deep voice called out. Danny immediately straightened up, flushed as our boss and owner of the Purple Dove, Netsu, strolled over to us, his dark eyes narrowed on Danny. There is a shipment of false thumbs in the back. Danny, make yourself useful, Netsu directed in a kind yet strict tone that was not to be messed with. His Middle Eastern accent made him sound 10 times cooler than putting Danny in his place. Danny huffed and stormed off. Netsu turned to me, smiling as his famous dove and the store's namesake. Fiona cooled on his shoulder. Netsu's signature magic trick was somehow turned Fiona's feathers purple. No one knew how he did it, and he would just grin when any of us begged him to tell us how. He crossed his arms over the same outfit he wore every single day. Black ripped jeans, a white button-up with rolled sleeves that showed off thick leather bracelets on both wrists, a silver Egyptian necklace of the goddess Iris. Netsu spoke very highly of his home and loved sharing ancient legends with us about Iris and the Seven Scorpions, the Scarab Society, and the Book of the Dead. I loved hearing about these legends. Maggie, would you please finish your trick? He gestured back to the audience. He is seriously the coolest. Yes! I turned back to the crowd, feeling like I could take on the world, and just for fun, I picked up the card on the top of the deck and showed it to the boy. Is this your card? He shook his head, happy to report, no. That's what I thought, because it's actually been in your pocket the entire time. The boy hesitated, not believing that the card could possibly be there. He dug around in his pockets and sure enough whipped out the 7 of hearts. His jaw dropped. He showed it to his friends and parents, and the crowd applauded and whistled. Along with Netsu, my face grew hot. Seeing my mentor applaud and being impressed was the best feeling ever. Netsu had taught and continued to teach me everything I knew about magic, along with tons of wise life lessons. He was also a close friend to my family, so he was practically an uncle to me. Uncle or mentor, it was awesome to see him applaud for me. Don't forget to grab your snake wands, whistling flowers, or 3 mummies on 1 coffin tricks on your way out, Netsu called out over the din. And remember, not everything is what it seems. He snapped his finger and a cloud of purple dust consumed Fiona, turning his feathers lavender before everybody's eyes. She fluttered down to his finger, and Nessu showed her off with the biggest smile. The crowd roared and applauded, woos, ahs, and wild eyes. Meanwhile, I could only stand there, trying yet again to figure out how he'd pulled it off. Come back any time, Nessu waved to the crowd as they disappeared into the streets of downtown Seattle, or throughout the store. He turned to me, placing Fiona back on his shoulders. How did you do that? I begged once again. He laughed. My dear, some secrets aren't meant for sharing. He mimed, zipping his lips together. I rolled my eyes. Your sleights are getting better, Nessu crossed his arms. Really? I honestly thought I could have done better, especially if Danny hadn't chimed in. I began to spring my cards, making my cards fly from one hand to the other as Nessu talked to me. You're becoming a fine illusionist indeed. It is very enjoyable to watch you. Thank you. I enjoy it too. The look on their faces when you finish a trick, it's just priceless. My smile quickly faded as I looked down at my hands. They were still shaking. What's wrong? Nessu asked softly. I don't want to be scared. I lifted my hands to show him. How do I get over this? I rolled my wrists, almost like I could work the nerves out of them. Trust in your abilities. You've got more than what it takes. Just don't let the fear win, okay? He squeezed my shoulder. Okay, I nodded. Also, keep practicing your forces and your flourishes. They're looking great. But I know you can do better before the summer showcase, Nessu advised. I don't know. It looked pretty great to me, a familiar voice boomed. My cards sprung out my hands and went everywhere. I whirled around to see a muscular man leaning against the wall at the front of the store. His wavy dark brown hair and facial hair showed some age, but his grey eyes were the sweetest thing you'd ever looked into. Dad! I dashed over and leapt into my father's arms. He caught me and twirled me around the magic shop, laughing. What are you doing here? I asked, breathless, when he sat me down. I thought you were flying in next week. Well, I got in early, so I figured I'd stop by. He gave me an innocent smile. I told your mum not to tell you because I wanted to surprise you. I have to say, I think my little plan worked. Really? I don't think so, I deadpanned. But seriously, this is the best surprise ever. Seeing my dad in person nearly brought tears to my eyes. As an Egyptologist, he works months at a time in Egypt, so hugging him in person was better than Christmas. You're in town. You can watch me perform at the showcase in a few weeks, I explained. What day is it? My father asked. The 24th, Natsu smiled. My dad scratched his head. I'm actually awarding a grant that night. At 7? I prayed it wasn't 7. 7 exactly, he sighed. Oh, I stared down at my shoelaces. But at least I got to see your little show here tonight. And it was amazing. He gave me a high five. I giggled to myself. Hey, why don't you two go and catch up for a little bit, Nessu suggested. Really? Excitement filled my chest. Yes, but please be back in 30 minutes so you can close up. My heart sank a little and I shook it off. Thanks, Nessu. I began to walk out with my dad. Maggie. I spun around on my toes. Nessu gestured. Your cards? Oh, right. Sorry. As quickly as I could, I carefully picked up my deck. I wouldn't want to leave the cards on the ground. They had been a gift from my dad when I first started Magic and had lasted a surprisingly long time. Usually cards only last a month, due to the constant bending and shuffling, but these cards had lasted almost 2 whole years. I only pulled out my purple and gold deck on special occasions, and that cute kid had been worth it to me. I placed my deck in its case, tucking it into my jeans pocket, and trotted over to my dad. He bear hugged me, and we were waved bye to Nessu as we exited into the busy Pike Place market. Okay, tell me about your trip. I honestly didn't care about hearing about the excavations, but I loved hearing my father tell stories. Oh yes, he replied, but not here. What do you mean? You know what I mean. Wait. I studied my dad's lively grin. The wheel? I asked, hopeful. The wheel. Really? Wheel going? I stopped in my tracks. Well, it's kind of our sacred tradition. I practically skipped down the street. A few blocks away was the popular tourist attraction, the Seattle Great Wheel. Its 175-foot Ferris wheel at the end of Pier 57, where you can see the magnificent views of Seattle. Sounds great and all, but I can't stand Ferris wheels slowly moving upward and overlooking deep waters. It's not something I call fun. But my dad and I did not go to Pier 57 of the Ferris wheel. We went because it was our spot. All the way to the edge of the pier and to the right, we stood together, looking out over the water. This place had first become our spot when a friend of mine invited me to the pier and then ditched me to go hang out with her crush when I was 12. I had been gutted because I still thought boys were gross and that didn't understand the concept of dating. I honestly still don't. My dad had come to my rescue and we stood at the end of the pier talking about how I felt about being ditched. He taught me in that moment how to open up and talk about my feelings, something that was still very uncomfortable for me. It made me feel like a cat being given a bath, but I would talk about anything when my dad was in town. It was such a luxury to see him in person, and being with him at our spot was one of my favourite things in the world. I don't think he even knew how much these moments here meant to me. So, first day of summer vacation. Having fun? My dad was glowing. Seagulls flew over our heads, chatting up a storm. I think we both know the answer to that question, I replied. Yes? Heck yes! I just finished the hardest year of high school with straight A's in all AP classes. I'm working at my favourite place in the world with a mentor, and soon I will have a lot of money saved up for college. I can't believe you're going to be a senior, my dad said, all grossly misty-eyed. Stop it. I'm sorry, he laughed. You know I'm going to miss you when you go off to college. Harvard, I corrected. Harvard, sorry. My parents knew very well that this was my dream to go to Harvard, to follow in my mum's footsteps and study law. My mum, Mariah Ann Davis, ran her very own law firm here in Seattle, and I dreamed of being head of all local cases one day, or starting my own local firm. I stress local. I'm not a fan of traveling and being away from people I love, and my mum, being an international crime prosecuting attorney, was always flying over one ocean or another. I barely got to see her. She was either in some foreign country or going over documents at her office. It was pretty much the same with my dad, but much worse. If he wasn't in Egypt for months at a time, he was at a random coffee shop working on his best-selling book series, digging in sand. I didn't care that my parents' jobs paid very well or that they were both amazing at what they did. I hated that their jobs took them away from me. But their success does drive me to become more successful. It was a personal mission of mine to get into a better school than both of my parents, and an ambitious goal considering they both went to Ivy League schools. Yes, I'm going to miss you too, I said. Part of me wanted to say, it's okay, I'm used to it, but that wouldn't have served any productive purpose. I changed the subject. So, why were you there this time? I asked, fringing interest. Well, my team is searching for more remains of the homes that housed the people who worked at the pyramids themselves. My dad was all smiles. Wow, so fascinating. I deadpanned, messing with him. My father looked down at the water below the pier and smiled. It can be. He truly did have a passion for ancient Egypt. He knew everything about the subject, from all theories of how they built the pyramids, to the pharaohs, to the Egyptian gods. He knew it all. Oh, I got you something while I was there. His eyes sparkled. He rummaged around in his jacket. Oh, here we go. My dad's gifts from Egypt were kind of lame. The gifts were thoughtful, and I appreciated that, but they were usually scrolls of papyrus teaching you how to read hieroglyphics, sand-filled leather camels that were basically stuffed animals, or miniature pyramid souvenirs that I now use as bookends on my shelves. All the type of stuff I used to love when I was little, but are just not me anymore. Not that he would really know that, having not spent much time with me. Still, I didn't have the heart to tell him. He always got so excited about these gifts. My dad pulled a brown leather jewellery box from the inside of his jacket. Your Majesty, he grinned and placed the box in my hands. Your Majesty? Your Majesty was one of my father's nicknames for me, but he also said it in special moments. A jewellery box? That's new. The leather box itself was smooth and it weighed almost nothing. I bit my lip with anticipation as I gently opened it. Inside was a golden Egyptian necklace. The pendant was a long oval shape resting on a bar with 4 Egyptian hieroglyphics engraved down the middle. My cheeks ached from the giant smile on my face. The necklace was so beautiful and unique. I never wore jewellery, but this necklace made me want to start. I had that made for you in Giza, my father said. Made? I ran a finger lightly over the engravements. Yes, You see the Egyptian symbols on it. My father pointed to the necklace. Well, those symbols are what's called a cartouche. I know, simple enough words, though I knew my tone said what I really meant. Duh. And the cartouche spells out the word Maggie. Are you serious? I gasped. He smiled proudly. You really like it? I stared at my cartouche necklace, trying to translate the Egyptian symbols as they spelled out my name. Thank you so much, Dad. I love it. I hugged him tight. You're welcome, he laughed, and he gently kissed my forehead. Would you like me to put it on? My father reached to the clasp around my neck. Yes, please. I turned round and moved my hair out the way. He swung the necklace round my neck and clasped it. As soon as the gold touched my chest, a rush of adrenaline surged through my body. I stumbled, feeling a little faintish. Whoa, that was weird. You okay, Mags? Dad asked. Just felt lightheaded for a second. I waved a hand. Probably just the excitement from such an awesome gift. Thanks again, Dad. I wrapped my arms around him again. We stood there holding each other in silence for a while, listening to the waves crash against the pier and watching the colourful lights from the Ferris wheel reflect off the water. I really missed you, Dad. I managed as a lump formed in my throat. He looked down at me and grinned. I really miss you too, Mags. He squeezed me tighter. As much as I don't want this moment to end, I should probably get back to work, I shrugged reluctantly. Probably a good idea. We can hang out some more when you get home later tonight. Okay. Let me walk you back. My dad held out his arm for me to take hold. I chuckled and followed his lead, back to the magic shop. I'm so glad he's home. Ugh, I hate closing, I thought as I locked the door to the Purple Dove. I sighed as I turned to face the dimly lit parking garage. It was just down the street, but it felt miles away. I took a deep breath, readjusted my backpack straps, and I began speed walking through the empty Pike Place Market. The only people who hung around here this late were the kind who were up to no good. So I looked over my shoulder every couple of seconds. I gripped my backpack as I hopped down the several flights of stairs that led to the employee parking area. I reached level 4 parking, and paranoid me checked over my shoulder again. I didn't see the person in front of me until I was crashing into him. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I apologized breathlessly. A guy in an oversized hoodie turned around, looked me up and down, and smiled with his yellow teeth. Hey there, pretty lady. Where are you going in such a hurry? His voice was raspier than a garbage disposal. Home? I forced a grin and began to walk away. He stepped in front of me with a snicker. Ah, that's nice, but I'm not sure if I can let this whole bumping thing go that easily. It was pretty rude. He pointed his cigarette at me. What? I shook my head, taken back. A sick feeling pulled in my gut. Something is wrong. Quick as lightning, he reached his hand out to grab me. It was like time slowed down. Somehow, before he could touch me, I swung upwards and punched him in the nose. He staggered back, cursing in pain. Then time seemed to speed back up, blurring together. I fell into the wall behind me and slid to my knees. My head pulsed, and I felt lightheaded. This is not the time to pass out. I forced myself to snap out of it as I saw blood spilling all over from the ground from the man's nose. You broke my nose! He yelled over and over. How did I break his nose? I'm not that strong. I sprinted trying to get to my car as fast as I could. I yanked open my backpack, searching frantically for my keys. The man growled loudly as he climbed to his feet. Fear spiraled through my bones as he chased towards me. My fingers found the cold metal of my hands and I unlocked the door with trembling hands before throwing myself into the driving seat. Come on, come on, come on. As I backed out, he hit the side of my car with his fist. I screamed and drove off as fast as I could, chancing a glance at my rearview mirror as I cottoned through the empty parked garage. He threw his beanie at the car, cursing as more blood spilled from his nose. I pulled onto the street, a chorus of honking horns. I hadn't noticed that I had run a red light. That's it. No more night shifts. I finally started to catch my breath, but my pounding head made it difficult. Seriously, how did I break his nose? I eased my baby, a black 1965 Mustang that I bought with my money I'd been saving ever since I was 9, into my driveway. I was surprised I hadn't got in a wreck on my way home, between my head getting worse and the pouring rain. I used my off-white and dark green Letterman jacket to shield my dark brown curly hair from becoming a frizzy ball as I stepped onto the porch. I fumbled with my keys, trying to find the right one before I looked up and jumped. Sitting perfectly still on the opposite end of the porch was a small black cat with a scar across its eye. Its bright yellow eyes stared into mine. Every single morning, for as long as I could remember, the cat sat outside the second floor balcony doors from my bedroom and stared at me. The weirdest part was that it never moved a muscle until I yelled it to go away. I don't know how it got up there in the first place. I didn't even know who it belonged to. I've always wondered where it got that scar though. Strangest cat on the planet, I thought as I stared into its creepy little face. I rolled my eyes and entered my house. I locked the door behind me and placed my thumb on a wall tablet that scanned my fingerprint. My name instantly popped up with a green check mark. House armed, a computerized female voice announced. My father had always insisted that the best security system money could buy. You can never be too careful, he always said. I always thought it was overkill, but tonight I was grateful for it. No one could ever touch me or hurt me in our house. I was sure of that. I dropped my backpack off at the door and headed into the living room to find my dad sitting in his recliner, reading a book, drinking tea, a habit we'd both adopted from my very British mother. Hey Mags, my dad's face lit up. He'd obviously been waiting to hang out with me. How was work? It was great. No way I was going to mention the creepy parking lot guy. My dad would flip out. Overprotective is his sin-on with me. He would literally make me stay home for a week from school if a little crime in the news happened nearby. I wasn't about to be on home arrest. Where's Mum? I had noticed her Mercedes wasn't in the driveway. She just texted to say she'll be home in an hour or two. She's wrapping up a case. Awesome, I said underneath my breath. Oh man, I wish she was coming home sooner. Finally, my family was all in one place and I just wanted to hang out with them. Anyway, so what would you like to do? Board games? Food? Movies? My father asked. Dad, I said reluctantly, would you mind hanging in the morning? My head is killing me. You all right? He got up and placed his hand on my forehead. You do feel a bit warm. He gave me a sympathetic look. Yeah. How about you go to bed? In the morning, we can all go get coffee or something with Mum too and really catch up. Sound good? Yeah, I agreed. Good night. I hugged him. Good night. My father kissed the top of my forehead and then returned to his recliner and book. Walking up the stairs, my entire body felt like it was made of cement. I death gripped the railing with each step and somehow made it to my bedroom. Lightning illuminated my balcony and I gasped. On the balcony sat the little black cat, fixing its unrelenting stare at me. The feline and the storm spooked me so badly that my knees buckled and I collapsed onto my rug. Weird cat was the last thought I had before I passed out. Bing! 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 I woke up shivering. I was in the corner of a square room built out of black stone. A massive round stone tablet stood proudly in the middle of the room. Everything was fuzzy, but I made out a floating sphere, a glowing hologram of Earth hovering over the table. Another sphere was hovering beside it, but I didn't recognize the landmarks. Goosebumps rose on my arms. Where am I? I jumped at the sound of the faint beeping noise that rang through the room. A little blip on Earth's sphere flashed gold. I climbed up off the dirty floor and crept closer to get a better look. It's flashing near Seattle. Just then, a bald man wearing dark eyeliner and puffy pants stuffed into brown leather boots sprinted into the room. He wore a thick golden belt engraved with hieroglyphics and a leather chest protector stopping around his buff pecs. He reminded me of an ancient Egyptian. He examined the flashing dot and his breathing interfield. His demeanor scared me, so I stayed hidden in the shadows. That can't be, he said, shaking his head. He pulled out a bronze dagger from his belt as a look of curiosity and determination settled over his face. He darted for the black wall, which turned out to be not a wall at all, but a cloud of mist. He walked through the mist without hesitation, as if he'd stepped through a portal. A loud boom echoed throughout the room, causing me to cover my ears in pain. Thunder shook me back to consciousness. I rubbed my head as I sat up from the only nap I'd ever taken on my rug. The clock on my nightstand read 2:43 a.m. I had passed out for about 2 hours. Still feeling dizzy, I moved towards my bed. As I stood up, my breath caught in my throat. I fixed my eyes on my glass balcony doors. The full moon was breaking through the storm clouds, illuminating a figure standing on my balcony. My breathing interfered. I found myself to see my mind was just playing tricks on me. Who's there? Slowly I reached for the curtains, then yanked them open. No one was there. I opened my doors to my balcony and walked into the pouring rain. My balcony was L-shaped, so I checked the longest side first, the one that looked over the part of our yard and the woods behind our house. There was nothing. I tiptoed back around and gasped. A man stood on the balcony. The man from my dream. The bald man gawked at me, clutching the same bronze dagger in his hand. He fixed his eyes on my necklace as if he was reading the hieroglyphics. "You're alive," the man said if I was a ghost. Huh? Then something snapped inside of him, and he lunged at me, grabbing me by the arms. As I tried to scream for my parents, he covered my mouth with a piece of black cloth. The cloth stuck to my face like duct tape. When I tried to pull it off, it felt like my whole face would rip off with it. I continued to scream, but I could not produce any noise. It was like I had lost the ability to pronounce sound. What is happening to me? I struggled to get free, but the man was incredibly strong. He brought me to the edge of the balcony that hovered over my pool and below tossed me over the railing. Air caught in my throat as I fell with the pouring rain right into the pool, splashing into the deep end. I frantically swam into the freezing water, my super skinny jeans restricting my movement. The cloth over my mouth made it difficult to breathe as I crawled out of the pool. The man leapt off the balcony and landed swiftly onto the grass in front of the water. No one can land on their feet like that. That was a 20-foot drop at least. The man marched towards me, his dagger ready. Next to me was a pool skimmer. I snatched it, scrambling to stand up in my soggy Converse, and held it in front of me. The man marched towards me, his dagger ready. Next to me was a small pool skimmer. I snatched it, scrambling to stand up in my soggy Converse, and held it out in front of me. The man lunged forward. I swatted at the blade as I inched along the edge of the pool. His blade clinked against the cheap metal as he sliced through the sleeve of my shirt. I hissed, bending over my arm. The cut stung, and it was only getting worse with the rain sloshing into the seeping blood. The man stopped in his tracks, laughing. "You don't know how to fight!" A look of fascination washed over his face as he kicked me in the stomach, causing me to stumble back onto the first steps of the pool and lose my grip on the pool skimmer. He repositioned his blade to stab. "You don't know who you are, do you?" he asked, amused. I watched his every move, more confused than ever. "They kept you hidden all these years." What the heck is he saying? I struggled against the strip covering my mouth. "All that work for nothing. I still have to kill you." What? I was about to make a break from it when an unrevealing, animalistic growl came from behind me. I slowly turned my head to see a little black cat arching its back, growling threateningly at the man. The man looked as though he was staring death in the face when he saw the cat, but continued to advance me. The cat leapt past me, landing on the man's bald head. It began to viciously claw it, ripping the skin off, causing the man to fall in the pool. I climbed out of the pool, shaking. The man desperately yanked the cat off him and threw it out of the pool with so much force that the cat smashed through my parents' bedroom window. The broken window set the alarms off. Sirens blared and the red lights flashed in every room of the house. The feline meowed loudly and jumped out the broken window, ready to attack again as the man trudged out of the water, still clinging to his dagger. Bang! 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 Blood erupted from the man's shoulder. Blood spewed into the pool as he yelled out in pain. I snapped my head to see my mom and dad running out of the back doors in their pajamas, both firing handguns. I sprinted and hid behind them. My mum saw the cloth over my mouth and tore it off. My cheeks stung like crazy. "You guys have guns?" I yelled. "Stay down," my dad replied, still firing. I couldn't believe they had guns. They were the most chill people I ever met, so this was completely unexpected. We watched the man take off running into the woods behind our house. "Maggie!" My mum lowered her gun and knelt down beside me with worry in her eyes. "Are you all right?" Her voice was shaky, but the sound of it was still like a warm blanket wrapping around my shoulders. "Yeah, I'm fine," I said automatically. Was I? I wasn't sure. Everything had happened so fast, I didn't have any time to process. "Maggie," my dad gripped one hand on my shoulder while keeping his gun pointed at the ground with his other. His body was shaking worse than mine. "God, you're soaked. Get her inside. I'm gonna go after him." He stood up suddenly. "What?" I exclaimed. "It's okay. I'll be fine." He winked at me, showing me his gun, and then ran off. "Dad!" I screamed. My tears mingled with the rain on my face. "It's all right, darling. He'll be all right. Let's go inside." I started bawling as my mum escorted me inside, her gun in front of both of us. As we walked inside, we heard the police sirens getting closer and closer. And there we go. There is chapter 1 of The Secrets Within Me by Liana Ramirez. And I'm going to leave it there. What do you think so far? Are you excited? Are you not? Let me know down below in the comments, and chapter 2 will be coming very, very soon. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.
チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができます。